It's Toby from Heavyweight MMA here with MMA fighter Mr. Colby Thicknesse today, talking about celebrity boxing matches that have been happening lately. What are your thoughts on it, man?
Feel like everyone, there's a few sort of mixed feelings involved. Like, let's just talk about the last one, like Woodley versus Paul. That was probably the most frustrating fight I've ever had to watch. So, yeah, it's just there's mixed feelings about it. Sometimes I think it's good because, as we all know, there's a lot more eyes on the sport and that it gets more people talking about combat sports. But then again, it does sort of take away from a hard work of like the guys on UFC prelims who deserve to have the sort of fan base and that following them compared to where you get a YouTuber like Jake Paul who already has like that massive following. So I have mixed feelings about it.
I reckon this is the type of thing that's been going on forever in some ways. Like you think back in the days of the Roman Colosseums and the old gladiators were fighting, and then someone throws a tiger in the mix, and there's a tiger fighting a human. No one gives a fuck about the gladiators anymore. They want to watch the tiger fight the human. It seems like something like that, right? It's just point of interest, and people want to see it. It's just like these. Even the celebrity matches, man, they've been going on forever too, man. Like it's not a new phenomenon, I don't know if you know about it, but a long, long time ago, when you were just a sparkle in your father's eye, Muhammad Ali fought a
I've
wrestler
heard about this one, yeah.
in a fight that they kind of call like a precursor to MMA, where they fought like weird mixed rules. There was a weird wrestling versus boxing match, and this obviously got people watching. And then through the years, there's been other types of celebrity boxing matches. There was this show called The Partridge Family. One of the guys who was an actor on that fought a boxing celebrity match that everyone wanted to watch as well. And now we've just got all these fights coming out of the woodwork because people want to see it. Like it's because people want to pay to see it, and it can make money, right? So yeah, it's interesting.
It's like that circus sort of spectacle freak show where you're gonna pay just to see what happens, sort of thing. But one I didn't get behind was when they did that. I think they did like a YouTube versus TikTok or something. Like I wasn't up to date or anything, but I just saw like sort of like what would you say, like a review of the whole event come up on YouTube or something. And even then it was massive, and it was sort of sad to see because you have these guys with obviously they're sort of big public figures and personalities, but they have zero absolute fighting experience, and they're selling out arenas. You're getting all this pay-per-view, and like as a fighter myself, I'm like, oh, like cool, they got the like brand and the fighting up. But as a part of me, I'm like, fuck, people paying money to see, no offense, these two shit people slug it out when they won't even sort of give prelim fighters on the UFC card like a time of day sort of thing. That's the thing that sort of irritates me a bit with it.
Yeah, man, it's a difficult one because on one hand, these guys like Jake Paul, etc., maybe they're not the best fighters in the world, but they've worked hard and they've done their job to get their followers, right? And it's their followers that are paying the money mostly. Of course, there's people that want to see him get knocked out, and he's drawing from the MMA crowd as well, or the boxing crowd. But a lot of them are followers from him, and he's actually built that following. And they're like not even your normal followers of fight sports. They're like young kids, they're attracting these young generations to watch. And whether them watching these strange celebrity matches brings them into watching more MMA or more boxing, I'm not sure whether it's a positive thing or not. It's hard to really know. Yeah.
Yeah, it is because it's like you said, there's sort of good and bad. Like obviously, like you got to respect for Paul Brothers that they started off as I think Disney Channel, and then they went to Vine, then YouTube. I think they finished before they started doing like their sort of sporting and athletic endeavors sort of thing. But now you look at them and fair play to them. Like who was it? Yeah, Jake's beat Ben Askren. He's fought an MMA world champion, beat him. His brother had an exposition fight against a sort of greatest boxer in the world, the GOAT, Floyd Mayweather. So it's crazy to see, like, even though some people might not, like me personally, I don't think I'm necessarily, like, I'm not for it. I've never paid for any of these fights. Like, I'll be first to admit, I just, it's not my thing. Like, I'd rather pay and support actual fighters sort of thing. But you got to respect the hustle, you got to respect the grind. Like, even though they are sort of lippy, they talk, like, at the end of the day, it's the sort of thing where if you don't like him, you're either going to pay to watch him get knocked out, or you're just going to pay and sort of see what happens with it.
Yeah, man, and to actually get the KO over a couple of these guys like KO Ben Askren, even Ben Askren's not a boxer, still to get the KO over him. Not every man can walk in and KO Ben
Bobby
Askren.
Lawler couldn't even KO him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The limited rule says a bit different, right? You got to get him in a bulldog choke or whatever they were doing. But yeah.
After getting spiked on his head.
And the questionable thing that kind of comes into it all then, I would say, is in the beginning of Jake Paul's sort of fights when he fought guys like KSI, et cetera, they were like the same age, right? But now that he's stepping up, he's fighting people quite a bit older than him, and Logan Paul as well. Just that's the kind of thing that's a bit contentious, right? Like fighting a Ben Askren that's past his prime, fighting a Mayweather who's on his way to 50 years old, Tyron Woodley who's 40. Like these are just slightly higher age group than you'd really like to see them. Obviously, maybe it's a bit of an excuse. Obviously, really, they should be getting beaten by someone that's a professional MMA fighter that's only just ended their career. But 100%. It is what it is, and they are just slightly younger. Yeah, I don't know if that's a big difference to being competing in the like if they were the same age. You've got to imagine that it wouldn't be as easy.
Oh, definitely. That's the main thing that sort of I'm not a fan of these things. If Jake Paul was out, like I feel like Jake Paul should have fought like Tommy Fury or someone like that. Tommy Fury, he's a good boxer. He's still relatively young in his career, and you can sort of build the hype around that instead of calling out Tyron Woodley, how old is Woodley? He's like 40, he's in his 40s, I think, or is he
40? I think he's 39, 40, something like that.
39. So he's on his way out. He's lost like his last 20 rounds of combat sports. He's the sort of guy who is very hesitant. He never likes to throw anything. So with that, like I can sort of see, I respect him as like showman in that. Even though Woodley clipped in that, I still don't think they're sort of showing that he's like, understand, I think he's a good showman and everything, but I still don't think until he actually gets in against a young, hard guy, calls out a tough matchup, then he can start of actually calling himself like a fighter and that. Calling out guys like a Nate Robinson, a basketball player, a Ben Askren, Tyron Woodley, like I feel like he needs to sort of, if he wants to actually pursue the boxing, he needs to start actually fighting proper, legitimate, like professional boxers who are on the same sort of trajectory as him, sort of thing. But then again, like he said in the interview, like he doesn't even know if he's going to box again, sort of thing. I'm sure he would have made an absolutely ridiculous amount of money in his last few fights. So even before he went to boxing, he probably never needed to work a day again in his life. After this boxing, he definitely never needs to work a day in his life. He could have said, oh, no, I've had a few fights. I've been an MMA world champion. I'm done with that and on to my next endeavor, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it'd probably be a good way for him to go, to be honest. Just jump out of the game now. He's never going to be questioned. He's done very well. But what this does do, man, I think it teaches guys like yourself, man, that are coming up, that if you really want to make money, I think you have to consider more things than the old traditional way of just being a good fighter. You have to look at social media. You have to get a following online. You have to show yourself and, give something to the public that's new. I think guys like Sean O'Malley, even to a lesser extent, guys that are popular by the nature of them on social media, like Conor McGregor, even Khabib's got a massive following as well. And then guys like you see, Paddy the Baddy just jumps up out of nowhere and suddenly everyone knows his name just for the fact that he's got a good sort of presence online,
Yeah, he's got more followers than fucking the featherweight world champ now after his UFC debut, sort of thing. And that's all it is, purely because he's that sort of character where he has that sort of, like he says, he has that polarizing figure where you're just going to want to tune in. He has that sort of energy where if you watch him fight, you're going to want to keep watching him. You're going to want to keep up with him socially and that. That's one thing I do respect about like even sort of the Paul brothers and all the sort of celebrities and that, they're really good. They know how to build their brand. And that's one thing, like you were saying, a lot of fighters don't, sort of thing. It's a hard thing to do, to sort of have that confidence to really like put yourself out there and sometimes put your real you, or you have other guys who sort of put their persona out there. But either way, it's still like a hard thing to do. You have to sort of put that image out and you have to maintain that image and sort of build your following around that. So for like all the sort of like celebrities, even like the KSIs and that, doing it from like YouTube to now, like fair play to them. Like, look how far they come. They're set up for life just by sort of being themselves and just sort of, doing their own thing. So it's good. I reckon that's, it's definitely a good thing for fighters, even someone like myself, to sort of look and try and take little bits of sort of wisdom and that from, even though I don't necessarily have to agree with what they're doing whilst they're fighting that, there's still, you can't sort of sit around and be like, oh, no, them guys don't know what they're doing. Like, they're great at branding themselves, marketing, they know how to get people talking about them, which is, at the end of the day, is what's going to sell tickets, is people want to see you fight.
Man, to be honest, if I was a young fighter now, knowing what I know, and if I was you as an example, as you start to get your professional record in order, I would be seeking it out. I'd be putting it in as part of my, I need to do this. I need to do wrestling, I need to do BJJ, and I need to do social media, probably as a daily or weekly thing, and scheduling interviews and all that sort of thing. Once you actually get to that level where you've got a few wins up your belt and you think you do have a decent future in it, I'd put it in as part of a necessary thing now, because it's gonna affect your ability to make money, right? And that's the most important thing at the end of the day for you guys. You're already going to be doing the warrior thing. You're going to get training your ass off. You're going to progress in your skills and all that. But if you also want to support yourself with money, I think it's the way to go for the future, right?
Yeah, especially with a sport like fighting, like people understand there's only a very short window where you can make money. You have to get in, try and stay as healthy as you can, win as many fights, get as much money as you can, and get out. You don't want to be one of these guys, like a perfect example, like Nick Diaz, who's like, who knows, he might come out and sort of prove us all wrong, but I don't think he needs to come back for the money. But guys like that, you see them come back well past when they need to. Who was it that was it who just had the fight against Vitor Belfort?
Evander Holyfield.
Yeah, Holyfield. Yeah, that's a perfect example. He came back, and there was no need for him to be in that ring whatsoever. And then you sort of look what happens, purely because it's a bit different. He obviously probably wasn't the smartest with his money on that, and he still probably had that fire. But this is not a sport you want to hang around any longer than you have to. You want to get in, get your money, and get out and make as much money as possible. And to make as much money as possible, you need to sell tickets. To sell tickets, you need to have people talking about you, and that's when it comes back, like you said, like the brand, the image, and everything like that.
And you just touched on the thing about these old guys coming back, like the really old guys. And to me, on paper, yeah, Mike Tyson's coming back to fight Roy Jones. Like, yeah, awesome. And you see him get in there and they're a shadow of the former selves. No matter Mike can throw a nice punch here and there, they're a shadow of what they were. And then poor Evander Holyfield jumps in the ring with Vitor, and as soon as it starts, you see this old man just flicking out this shitty, weak jab, and it's just embarrassing, man. Like, I really don't want to see that. I don't want to see Roy Jones come in and look like he can't punch his way out of a wet paper bag like he did. And even Tyson didn't look good, man. He might look good against Roy Jones, but he didn't look good, And Evander Holyfield looked terrible. And he's 58, man. Like, relax. You should be relaxing on a porch somewhere or going fishing.
Honestly.
Don't do this. And then the same with Ortiz. I guess the 40s, mid 40s, maybe they get away with it. Like Vitor Belfort, juiced up to the gills, looked all right.
Yeah.
Anderson Silva looked good. These guys are mid 40s, but I guess as you get closer to mid 50s to 60, depending on your life and your body makeup, man, fucking give up the fight sports. Be a commentator, coach people, do something else, man. I really don't like watching it. I think it's bad for them,
Oh, honestly, like even when Floyd fought Logan, I was like, I don't really want to see this, like, because Floyd hasn't knocked anyone out in years, sort of thing. Logan's a lot bigger. Fair play to both of them. They've got a massive payday for it. But I feel like that did a lot more to sort of tarnish Floyd's legacy than it would have if he just sort of said, nah, I'm staying out. Like, Floyd gained nothing besides a paycheck for fighting Logan. But then again, at the end of the day, he's getting paid, and sort of, so we're not really in the position to sort of judge him for them decisions. But yeah, like you said, these old guys coming back, just Anderson Silva, he's a good example where he's still got it. You see when he's crafty, his speed and everything there. When you look at Holyfield on the pads, you just think, fuck, this is not going to go well. So yeah, it's a shame to see some old guys come back too late past their prime. I don't know if it's for the money, they're trying to relive the glory days, or if they just have a bunch of sort of yes men around them telling them that they think they can do it again. But yeah, I feel like especially for the Holyfield one, commission or someone should have never sanctioned that fight. That was just sad to see. And that's when I think the celebrity sort of boxing matches and that, they go too far of that sort of thing. Paul versus Woodley, even though it's sort of a bit annoying in the sense that it's not like two great boxers, still the two athletes who are still good and they're still sort of relatively fit and healthy in that. As soon as you start bringing older guys who are getting knocked out in a minute and that, you can't throw proper punches, that's when it gets a bit too far, I think.
Yeah, man. Actually, I believe they did actually try to get it in one place. They had to move location because they wouldn't sanction it in wherever their original location was. So obviously it was the wrong thing to do. It's kind of proven. Hey, one thing before we bail, man. And just thinking UFC, man, they had the famous CM Punk run. That was like, for me, that was pretty awesome. Like it was interesting to everyone. So, you know, the storyline's amazing. A pro wrestler with a massive following decides to come over. He thinks he can do it. He's training jiu-jitsu, he's training stand-up. They're documenting it all, showing everyone. And then he comes in and has a fight against real fighters and just gets fucked up. It was exactly what we kind of all thought and probably hope would happen to Jake Paul, but it hasn't happened, you know. It was just poetic justice. He was fighting guys that are legit high level guys, like probably at the entry level to UFC, but he's coming in as a entry level, even though he's kind of jumped the queue a little bit and just getting smoked. It was kind of funny to watch.
Oh, definitely. That's like, I think even when Dana White said after, I think it was the second fight, where he's like, I'm never going to do anything like that again. Like, he realized like that was such a mistake. Like, fair play, like CM Punk, obviously WWE, like he was athletic in that, but you had no professional fighting experience and you chuck him in against Mickey Gall. And then who was the other guy? It was Jackson or someone. I can't remember his name. Yeah. But that fight was absolutely terrible. Like, old mate's not looking at him, just like little touchy hammer fist, like, and that's when Dana White I think that's when he realized like that sort of celebrity thing just doesn't work. And that's what I like about UFC, where if you pay for a UFC fight, it's the best guys fighting the best guys, right? That's why I think it's all right to have the celebrity boxing and or sort of like the sort of celebrity combat sports or the sort of big hyped ones of people we see fighting, as long as they don't cross into that sort of like Evander Holyfield and TRT Vitor sort of thing, where stuff like that, if that becomes a new norm, I don't think it's going to last very long, because I don't think many people are a fan of that. But I will still probably watch whoever Jake Paul's fight next. I hope it's like a Tommy Fury or someone like that, or he might call out fucking Nick Diaz or someone like that after this. So who knows?
Yeah, man. So I think at the end of the day, it's all about, you know, these commercial enterprises making money. If we, the public, want to see these fights, they're going to happen, man. And everyone likes seeing a fight, you know. And sometimes you watch two professional fighters fight, and you know it is what it is. Unless you're a real fan, you might not enjoy it. But if you see some loudmouth idiot fighting some normal guy, you know, it's kind of interesting, right? We all want to see the blood. We all want to see them fight. So I think there's always going to be some following for these sort of celebrity matches, and you know, even your what are they called, like your blue collar matches and that they have, business professionals.
I know what you mean.
It's all mixes into the same thing, but whatever to make money, man, it's going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
And like I
said,
was
going to say, if Donald Trump and Joe Biden has a fight, I'm paying for that one. That's got all my money. That's the one fight I'll pay for.
Joe Biden should fight Trump. He should fight fucking Evander Holyfield. I reckon they might even be similar levels at this point, bro.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
You can get a good scalp.
Definitely.
All right, man. Thanks for the discussion, bro. And get onto that internet presence, bro, as your career moves forward, eh?
Definitely legend. Thanks again.
Cheers, bro.